This video is on Tunisia, not a video in the sense that I'm giving statistics or presenting facts about a country with cool graphics, but it'll be just videos that I took of Tunisia, mostly driving around Tunisia, and that brings me to a bias that I sort of have while recording these videos of me being especially fascinated with natural land. The absence of big cities does not mean that Tunisia doesn't have cities. They certainly have plenty of cities, but driving around I was especially interested in taking videos. I hadn't planned on this, but it just turned out that I had more videos of the landscapes in Tunisia. Although during the last portion of the video I do have a lot of scenes from Bourguiba Square, and that's about the only city video that I have. Anyway, so it's more like a podcast style video during which I interview some Tunisians on what it's been like living in Tunisia on a particular topic that I found particularly interesting. That is diversity within Tunisia. Whether it be religious, ethnic, or even the land, I found it really interesting how so many different kinds of people live in this country. And you'll hear a lot about that from the interviews. The reason I was in Tunisia was for a class trip. Over the semester we read some books and discussed them regarding politics and social issues, as well as some fiction by Tunisians. One book in particular that I found to be interesting, if you're interested in political science or history or both, really this book, Tunisia, an Arab Anomaly by Messri Safouine, really contextualizes modern Tunisia. And there's especially emphasis on their post-colonial history and their struggle with identity, whether they're Arab or what even the description Arab means, if it's a generalization to label them as other than Western or African or Asian. But yeah, generally it's a really fascinating book, and it's not just about politics, but an analysis of modern Tunisia. And actually something really unique has been their constant emphasis on women's rights. A lot of countries struggle with representing women properly, on a government level especially, and from both countries that I come from, Mongolia and America, there are no women on the currency. But on the Tunisian currency, you can see that there is a woman. I don't know if there are other women on other currencies, but generally the country is very representative. So the people that I interviewed are Aya, Amin, and Salma, who are all three university students who came here on scholarship for a year at the university that I'm studying at in the States. And there is Najib, who is the fourth one, and he is Salma's father.
Tell me about something that reflects how diverse life in Tunisia has been for you.
So, honestly, I didn't realize how diverse Tunisia is until I came here. Seeing people,
Here being America.
Yeah, in America. When I was in Tunisia, differences and, diversity was kind of like the basic. When I came here and realized that when I get to connect with international students, I realized that I relate in everything they say, especially the language. And when I was able to speak so many languages, I was like, that's cool. I didn't know that, because if you go, every Tunisian can do what I want, can do what I do. But when I came here, it was like, wow, you speak languages? Well, how do you understand that? I was like, okay, I get it now. I always have something I know about that culture. Like, for example, Belgium, I know a lot of things. France, Switzerland, every culture. And honestly, I'm not the type of person who always read or, try to know things about the world. But those are basics things that made me have things to talk with international people. And I realized, oh, I know that. And it was not actually, it was in my culture normally to know that. I had it for free without trying to.
So it's not just like literal languages, it's also the language of like knowing these other cultures
Yes,
and being able
like
to
you.
relate with other people.
Yes, true. This is how I realized how culturally diverse.
And so every Tunisian will.
I realized that every Tunisian has a basic. Some are more aware of things, but we can connect. We can find ourselves in so many cultures, and we know, like, we dress up in a way that is related to one culture. We talk to another. We watch series of the third one. Like our TV, it's really like full of Turkish, Americans, French, so many cultures, and you don't realize that until you come here.
Maybe not a story per se, but I do have a lot of experiences with people from different cultures, like coming from Spain or Italy, that are here to explore Tunisia and explore our culture, and then they see something, like they see a food or they see some style of architecture, and they instantly identify with it, and they're like, yeah, we have that too. And I think that's really cool, showing how kind of our culture is a combination of all these different cultures that accumulated through history. So, for example, I had someone from Italy come over to our grandma's house, and we had all these old equipment for making olive oil, and I didn't know what they were. They were like really old, but our guest actually recognized some from his traditional like background from Italy, from making. I think it was different. I think it was wine more than olive oil. But yeah, he identified the equipment. I was like, yeah, that's really cool that we use the same stuff. Something with food. Well, food happens a lot from people with Spanish backgrounds or even Mexican backgrounds, where they see some like our food, where we use certain types of spices, and when they taste it or when they see it, or they would like name it in their culture, and we would have obviously a different name for it, but it would be the same food.
One day, when I was still in high school, there's this French philosopher that came to give a conference in Tunis. His name is Michel Onfray. And he said that every time he comes to Tunisia and like talks about identity with people from Tunisia, they're always kind of asking him for answers about the Tunisian identity from his point of view as a foreigner, as if they were asking, like, tell us about us. And it made me wonder why that is. Why are people asking about themselves? And then I kind of understood that it's hard to make up, like, a story about your identity, or like a sense of identity, when there's so many like complex components to it, and when the world like constantly wants you to fit into one category. So are you Arab? Are you like I don't know, African? Are you westernized? Are you Berber? Are you I don't know, Turk of Turkish descendants? And so people always try to fit into one category, and that just doesn't work. I think one crucial thing for Tunisia is to accept its identity as a North African country made of made of a complex mosaic of cultural influences, and that makes us. So we really don't have to take sides in anything, or like try to fit with another group of people. We can be our own people. And so yeah, this like identity crisis that I personally witness in my own country reflects like how diverse we are and like how complex our identity is. But also like a more simple story, just going abroad and being able to interact with people who speak different languages, and um, that not being like too exceptional. Um, like for a Tunisian to speak English, French, and Arabic and be able to like interact with people who speak those three languages, it has made me like understand how like culturally diverse we are without even realizing it. Because most people only speak one, maybe two languages.
Effectivement, moi j'ai deux amis d'enfance qui viennent du sud de la Tunisie, de Gabès exactement. Et donc, moi je suis blanc et eux ils sont noirs. Et c'est mes amis d'enfance jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Ma mère est d'origine gabésienne, mais elle est comme moi. Donc, et moi, je vais souvent chez eux, c'est Gabès. Gabès, c'est une oasis maritime, l'une des rares oasis maritimes dans la Méditerranée. Au lycée, quand j'étais au lycée, donc j'avais aussi des amis au lycée, juifs et chrétiens, et on s'entendait beaucoup. La diversité religieuse, finalement, ou bien même autre, c'est que elle a commencé à diminuer depuis l'indépendance. Donc, à l'indépendance, il y avait beaucoup de Tunisiens, qu'ils soient de différentes religions, mais petit à petit, ils ont quitté la Tunisie, se sont soit retournés en Italie ou en France. Et là, ça a fait que ces personnes-là sont devenues assez minoritaires. Moi, j'ai un ami qui est un grand couturier en Tunisie. Il s'appelle René Cauchy. Maintenant, il est à la retraite. Il est tunisien, d'origine maltaise. Il est chrétien. Il habillait, lui, deux présidents, Bourguiba et Ben Ali.
When foreigners see a country, the image of it and its people is often very one-dimensional. Could you give some examples of the ways that Tunisia's cities and people may differ from each other?
I I lived in Kef, which is in the north. I lived in Tunis. I lived in Beja. I lived in so many cities, and I lived in Manuba, which is another also like city, and I realized every time how different could a city be. Tunis is like New York here, so it's like you know, it's really full of people. It's active. It's dynamic. It's where the businesses are. It's Tunis and Sfakas. It's more and more open. That's because so many people come, because it has Zindina and it has so many, like Sidi Boussaid, so tourists come, and with tourists coming, they get to be more open about things and more culturally like open. Other cities I went to, they were more I would say close from the world. You know how you see this cultural diversity? I would say it gets less when in some cities, like Karwan. Karwan is like a spot where it's like the Islamic civilization started. When the Arab culture came and Islam came, it's really centralized in Karwan. But it's not just about Karwan. Also in the south, where like the Berbers, they're also a little bit close from the world. So I would say it's close from the world. Yeah, it's culturally less diverse in the south from the north. It's different Tunisia. I don't know.
Yeah, I did live in Suez. Comparing it to the capital, Tunis, it's a bit smaller in size, but that's because it's more spread out and it's less crowded. It does offer a lot of entertainment value, like the same as Tunis, and it's also like a big tourist destination. because obviously it's on the coast, and it has like a really good vibrant nightlife, which a lot of tourists seem to enjoy when they come to Sousse. So yeah, that's the main difference. I feel like it's less crowded, but it still holds that value of a big city life.
Did you grow up in Sousse?
Yeah, I did grow up in Sousse. Yeah, well, I grew up a bit all around the country, mainly in Sousse, but I did live in the south and the west for a while.
Living in Tunisia, I didn't really realize that there's like cultural differences between people. But coming here, like in America, sometimes I would like find myself describing Tunisia from my own point of view and from the people I know, and then I would realize that sometimes what I would be talking about is the exception, not the rule, and so sometimes there's like very slight differences that in the end like make up a big cultural difference. For example, like the TV people grow up watching. I realize that some people are able to speak better, like speak Arabic, French, or English better than other people. Like one of those languages better because of the TV they grow up watching, and so in the end it also influences their like perspective of the world and their like the media they consume and stuff like that. So
Avant l'indépendance de la Tunisie et la construction du nouvel État, il y avait plusieurs appartenances régionales et de clans, claniques, on appelle ça. Donc, avec l'indépendance, le régime a essayé donc d'unifier les Tunisiens et de faire en sorte qu'il n'y ait pas de disparité régionale ou ethnique, mais il reste toujours l'appartenance géographique qui demeure des caractéristiques selon la région. Et on voit ça énormément entre les zones urbaines ou les zones, disons, rurales. Il y a cette différence. La deuxième différence, c'est entre les zones côtières et l'intérieur du pays. Donc, nous avons les Tunisiens de la côte, où c'est assez bien développé, et l'intérieur qui n'a pas pu rejoindre ce niveau de développement. Sinon, au niveau culturel, et je redis au niveau de l'éducation, à l'université, dans les lycées, à l'université, cette différence, elle diminue beaucoup. Ça fait une belle spécificité. Et on retrouve ça aussi au niveau de tout ce qui est nourriture, de tout ce qu'ils mangent, de tout ce qu'ils préparent. Et chaque région a aussi cette spécificité. Mais et de plus en plus, il y a de mariages mixtes entre les régions. Et là, ça enrichit beaucoup. Au niveau régional, essentiellement, il y a une différence entre les Tunisiens qu'on appellerait conservateurs et les Tunisiens progressistes. Les Tunisiens plus ou moins ouverts, modernes, etc. Et puis, il y a un regain ces dernières années. Le conservatisme est revenu avec un impact du religieux sur la scène. Et cet impact n'a pas duré parce que les Tunisiens, finalement, ont compris que leur problème n'est pas de nature religieuse.
How do you think Tunisia as a whole country reflects its diversity?
Architecture is diverse. You can find, spots. You can find Muslim architecture. You can find Carthaginian. You can see so many different culture, but also we promote. This is something I remember that we promote. Maybe our cultural diversity. We promote the tattoos of the Amazigh, of the Berber, and that's to say. For me, it's a way to say we're not Arabs. It's like when I present myself, I say North African, and that's for me. It summarizes a lot of being Arab, Berber. Have been impacted from like have been impacted by cultural like Turkish, French. It's for me a sum And I think the Amazigh, the tattoo for the Berbers, is really being showed more and more to say that Tunisia is not an Arab country. This is maybe how we reflect.
Well, I think a great aspect to show that is traditions. I think if you visit each region of Tunisia, you'll find a specific set of traditions that traces back its origins to a different time in history. Taking, for example, marriage traditions in the South are very different from marriage traditions in the West. Even the clothing sometimes is different, or their prayers can differ. So a lot of these simple traditions that we just inherit just differ from place to place. So, for example, weddings in Sus are usually 3 days where we have a night to celebrate the groom, a night to celebrate the bride, and then a night celebrating their union together. In the South, it's a bit different than that, where we have, like, for example, 3 whole days to celebrate the bride, and they would have all these kind of rituals where they would take her to one of the public baths. They would have multiple nights for her with singing, dancing, and they would feed people. They would have like big dinner parties and all that. And then the groom would go to her house on the final day of those celebrations, and then they would have what we call like the contract, basically signing a contract, a marriage contract.
I think ever since the revolution, the country has tried to rebuild itself, and in that process, it has tried to pick and choose what it stands for and who we are as Tunisians. And through all the hardships we've gone through, we've decided to leave lots of things behind, or like fight things that we are not, and then we tried through our civil society to preserve things that are important to us. And so there has been a lot of movements to preserve the architectural heritage. There has been lots of little NGOs and like associations to protect minorities, whether it is the Berber minority to preserve the language and the culture, LGBTQ NGOs. We've had lots of minority religious groups, like protection NGOs. We've had environmental NGOs to try to protect the Tunisian landscapes from pollution and the extractive industries. And I think politically, like as time goes, the people in power try more and more. And I'm not just talking about like presidents, I'm talking about the whole governments. They're trying more and more to like emphasize on preserving the culture, whether it be like through the arts and education, and also just like historical awareness.
Évidemment, avec le développement économique du pays, il est apparu, disons, plusieurs différences. La différence de classe s'est accentuée et elle a concerné essentiellement les régions dites de l'intérieur ou décentralisées, qui sont restées plus ou moins sous-développées. Parce que le développement a eu lieu essentiellement sur le côté industriel, donc dans les grandes villes. Donc l'État a essayé de faire des lois qu'on appelle la discrimination positive, mais ça ne réussit pas beaucoup. Autrement, il y a eu depuis quelque temps cette disparité et c'est disons, reflété au niveau politique, où le changement qu'il y a eu en 2011 en Tunisie, ce qu'on appelle plus ou moins une révolte, une révolution, etc. Et le monde rural, finalement, s'est rebellé et voulait prendre charbon sur le monde urbain. Donc, et c'est pour ça que le populisme en Tunisie est devenu l'axe politique, disons, qui impacte le plus la scène. Je vais ajouter deux choses. Contrairement à l'Algérie et au Maroc, les Tunisiens d'origine berbère ont été très bien intégrés. Et donc, ils parlent les deux langues. Et disons, actuellement, il y a tout un mouvement nouveau en Tunisie. Euh, c'est un mouvement pour regrouper les Amazirs, donc les Berbères, et pour sauvegarder la langue. Okay. La langue et les traditions. Ceci est actuellement favorisé par, disons, la diversité qui a été affirmée au niveau de la Constitution. Donc, et aussi, d'autres mouvements donc, sont pour les minorités religieuses, pour qu'ils soient, disons, qu'ils développent leur activité de façon très, très libre.
How are Tunisian children being raised to see the differences in each other?
If you're in a place where someone who's the same color as you or the same gender, you have no opportunity to know if you're racist or not. Okay? I think Tunisia, even though we're trying to educate our children to be culturally, to accept and be tolerant, I think that some parts of Tunisia and some parts are racist. And I see a lot of articles, and I read more articles about Africans, like Central Africans coming and get treated in a like not a good way, in a bad way. So I think children should, even though we're trying to put it in education and the way we see people, and like the parent tried to educate, but I think we should put the spot on racism in Tunisia more, because we're not conscious.
What I'm seeing, especially from my environment as a college student, is that we have a lot more associations and clubs that are aimed at a global level. So we have a lot of associations that connect existing teams in Tunisia interested in whatever field to other teams of young people interested in the same subject matter. So, for example, robotics or computer science. And this collaboration, I feel like, is very, very important, because it not only does it just have the advantage of people getting to know each other and surpass that cultural barrier, but it also makes them aware of these are young people like us who are facing similar problems, and by working together, by being aware that even despite our differences, we can work together and achieve really great things. And we can face these problems, and eventually these are going to be global problems together. I think that's the main difference of today's generation, being very, very aware that there are problems that are bigger than them and that they can collaborate to fix those problems.
Children nowadays, like in the rest of the world, are very influenced by social media, and I think the Tunisian youth is very active on social media. They are more and more aware of problems in Tunisia, but they are also made aware of the solutions for those problems. So, for example, there has been a Black Lives Matters Tunisia, so a Tunisian version of BLM, to protect and raise awareness about Black people in Tunisia, because people tend to think that there's not really Black people in Tunisia, and even Tunisians call Black people African, but what are we if not Africans? So there's definitely like a bias against darker skinned people in Tunisia, but all those people see like Black people are as like not Tunisians, because it's like they are still a minority. So I think children are made more aware of these problems, but also like they are given a voice to like speak up and try to advocate for things they believe in through social media. And throughout the years in like schools and universities, there wasn't like very many like clubs, but now there's so many more student initiatives. Before, like, most things used to be like the initiative of the school, but now there's so much more room for like student initiatives, and I think that just children trying not to perpetuate archaic thoughts and ideas, and trying to make up their minds about things that also affect us in Tunisia is very important. So yeah.
Il y a aujourd'hui, il y a l'école publique pour tous et puis il y a l'école privée pour les riches. Enfin, pour les riches, pour les gens qui veulent avoir une autre formation. Donc, je pense que aujourd'hui, la meilleure intégration pour les enfants, c'est le sport. Le sport, donc, fait en sorte que les jeunes, etc., disons, ne font pas la différence au niveau de leur origine.